Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we are back with the handicap marks for this week, over hurdles and fences. This is the hurdles video, and I've also looked at the Irish handicap marks this week as well, and there's a few that I want to talk about. And we'll start off looking at Nara, who's been given a mark now of 123. And obviously I said that I thought she would win on Saturday and then end up in the Boodles. I still think she's going to end up in the Boodles, and the 123 mark should get her in that. I imagine she'll be given 125, 128 maybe, 125, 127 potentially in the UK. That should get her in the Boodles. And the races that she's running, she obviously started out in a graded race and then ran in that race that JP does like to have the winner of, and then go and win the race at the Boodles Juvenile. But maybe he thought about doing it differently this year, getting the horse beat and then turning up for the Boodles Juvenile Handicap Hurdle. Now the interesting thing I think with Nara is she's been held up, and she's been very keen throughout her races. I just wonder whether they might let her go forward or race a little bit more prominently come Fred Winter Day or Boodles Juvenile Handicap Hurdle Day, and obviously she'll carry her correct weight. Instead of it being a conditions race like she ran in at the weekend, where she was actually giving weight away to some of the horses, despite even being a filly. So she was giving away. Let me just have a look. She carried 11 stone 7. Eagle Fang carried 11 stone. Now that was purely because Nara had won a listed event over in France. I just think maybe they're being clever with her. She then returned or started her career this season, or started her career in Ireland in a Grade 3, where she was relatively comfortably beaten. She still finished 4th. She didn't finish like last or out the back. In actual fact, she beat Batman Girac, and I think Batman Girac is one of the favourites, if not the favourite. Second favourite, because Gina's not around in that, is he? Second favourite for the Boodles. Well, Nara beat him, and things didn't go right for Nara that day. And I think come Cheltenham, they'll allow her to go a little bit more prominent. And I wouldn't be giving up on her. I know I said I was going to back her for Nace and also for Cheltenham, so I've got a bet on her for Cheltenham. But I'm not giving up on her at all. If you did follow me in and back her for Cheltenham, I don't think it's completely a lost bet already. So yeah, that's Nara getting an opening mark of 123. The second horse I want to talk about, actually I've missed 2 out. Let me very quickly load those up as well. Okay, so I've done that. I know you didn't see it. So moving on to the next horse that I want to talk about, it's Favour dropping £1 to 136. Now, I suggested in my analysis video that I thought Dan Skelton was trying to work on 3 different horses at the same time in the Betfair Hurdle, and I kind of got a little bit of stick for suggesting that. Do you know what? I think he's almost got it spot on, and I think I almost got it spot on. Loda Sood went close to winning, probably did bump into a very well handicapped horse, because if you take the winner out that day, Iberico Lord, let's just double check the distances. Loda Sood would have won by 6 lengths in the Betfair Hurdle. The competitive Betfair Hurdle, he would have absolutely hacked up. So yeah, I think Dan Skelton was unlucky there, and he had 2 others running the race, and they both dropped in the handicap. Favour dropped £1 to 136. Let me just remind myself. 136. Dropped £1 to 136. Favour has ran twice in the Morebattle Hurdle, and has twice finished 3rd off 143, a £7 higher mark. If Heidi takes the ride as well, where she takes another 7 off, I mean, surely off a £14 lower mark, it's an effective £14 lower mark, would go very close. Favour has been beaten by the Shunter, obviously ridiculously well handicapped, and Night Edition, who I think David Pipe was aiming for that race. I think Night Edition actually lost his life that day. David Pipe tries to win double to do the pre-race and Cheltenham double, formerly the Imperial Cup Cheltenham. I think they still do that this year as well. And the shunter obviously did actually manage the double. The following year he came back. He finished third to Cormier in Saint Deroux. I thought Saint Deroux ran a great race that year. There were some good horses in this race. But as I said, that was off a mark of 143. Would run here this year off 136, so a £7 lower mark. And if Heidi takes the ride, it would be £14 lower. If Heidi doesn't take the ride and Harry goes up to ride, you'd still have to fancy Favois to go very close. And they could be trying to get a few into that county hurdle with big chances. I know he's come out and said that Dan Skelton's come out and said he's full of hope this year. It may well be because he thinks he's got a few coming to the festival that are well handicapped, not just Langadan, which everyone is aware of. So yeah, keep an eye out for Favois in the Morebattle. Go to the Morebattle first, which is on the 2nd of March. Win that, and then turn up for Cheltenham in the county, trying to win it and get a bonus. The next horse I want to talk about is Ito Ditto, who dropped £1 to 120. Now, I don't totally understand this one, because Harry Cobden actually said live on ITV. Don't know why I said that like that. It was like I was plugging ITV. I would never plug them, to be honest. I really don't like the TV coverage. That the horse had already lost his chance at the start because he could feel his heart already beating way too fast, and the horse had got really buzzed up and lost all chance. Now, for me, I don't totally think... I don't believe he would have won the race anyway. I don't think he's that good. However, that's where I would try and be aiming him specifically at a race. And for a smaller trainer like Nicky Martin, I think it's very important to be aiming at certain races and really trying to cherry pick your races en route, rather than just running them everywhere, potentially bottoming out, or losing confidence because he goes and runs in the county and disappoints, or he goes and runs at Aintree and disappoints. Really try and target a race. And I do think there is a real good race for him. You can see that he's ran 6 times at Chepstow, and he's actually won twice at Chepstow. Both his wins have come at Chepstow. But the trainer has stepped him up in trip as well. He's gone up to 2 mile 3. And I think now he's in handicaps over 2 mile 3. I think that would be certainly a trip that he could run well in off this mark of 120. And I know it's a long time to wait, but I'd be working backwards from the Silver Trophy at Chepstow over 2 mile 3. It's worth 39 grand, or it was last year, 39 grand to the winner. A trainer like Nicky Martin, I don't think, can be turning away those sort of prizes, and he can't be aiming for the 100 grand plus races, or the 50, 60, 70 grand plus races. If there is a race that really suits, that's where I'd be working back from, the Silver Trophy. So even if he does run over the next couple of weeks or next couple of months and he disappoints maybe once or twice, this is where I think we might see Ito Ditto back to his best, personally, in the Silver Trophy. And hopefully away from all the crowds. So Newbury was busy. I think Cheltenham and Aintree would be exactly the same. Chepstow, maybe not quite as much in October. I don't think you'd get as such a busy crowd. And maybe the horse wouldn't lose all chance before the race had started. So that is Ito Ditto dropping £1 to 120. We move on to Ikarak, who has dropped £2 to 118. I initially wrote down 188. That would have been some mark for Ikarak. Now, I'm just wondering whether he's finding life a bit tough in these feature handicaps over this trip, and I would be tempted to drop him back in trip. So any further than 2 mile 6, I know he's won over 2 mile 7, but it wasn't the greatest of races in October, and I think he kind of won that on the good to soft ground, demonstrating that maybe he's struggling to stay the 3 mile on heavy going. This was only a novice hurdle as well, and yes, he beat a couple of decent horses, including Domore Bay. I think it might be worth them dropping back in trip. Now, I don't think off 118 he's going to get in the Martin Pipe, which is kind of where I was aiming him towards. So I would be looking at this race here at Kempton, just after this one here. Just after Cheltenham. It's a race for horses rated 0 to 145, but you often get horses that are a little bit lower in the handicap getting in because everything's been named at Cheltenham. I think the trip would suit, and I think he can go forward here and really bring the stamina that he does have into play. Go forward, test them, And that's probably what I'd be doing with Ikarak. I do think there's still life in this Middleham Park Racing horse. Off his new marker 118. He's been well supported the last twice, so I don't believe that he's out of his he's poorly handicapped. I just wonder whether he's out of his depth or struggling to stay this trip on the heavy going. So drop him back in trip, and maybe drop him slightly in class. The next horse I want to talk about is a horse called Camsinas, who finished a decent 10th in the Betfair Hurdle for the Noel Feely Racing Club. And I really believe there's a clear trend with this horse. I think he runs his better races on better going. We can see that he's gone good to soft, good, soft. Then he disappointed on soft in a Grade 1, and then he's disappointed on heavy going in the Betfair Hurdle. But interestingly, he's won at Haydock, over 2 miles. Surely this is what you aim him at then. The Swinton. It's a 2 mile handicap at Haydock where he's won. He's won at Haydock. It's a handicap. It's slightly lower than the types of handicaps you'd encounter at the Cheltenham Festival or the Aintree Festival. And again, I think for a up-and-coming syndicate, the Noel Feely Racing Club, or Racing Club might not be a syndicate, I think they should be targeting races to try and win them rather than just running for... We ran him in a county hurdle. We ran him in the Martin Pipe. You know, we've had a Cheltenham Festival runner. Go to somewhere that you can actually win. And I think they would go very close in this because they're likely to come here and find it's better going, which I think the horse wants. And I don't actually think his run in the Betfair Hurdle was too bad. He might have been a bit far back that day and then ran on, just through beaten horses. But drop him in this race, the Swinton. I know it's May, and they may have to find a race in the meantime. They could go to a race that maybe he is going to struggle in. Something like, run him in the county hurdle then. Run him in the county hurdle, but have the Swinton as your main target. Imagine if they ran him in the county, he got disappointed, and he turned up in the Swinton off 1-8. I think he would have a great chance in the Swinton, back at the track that we know he does like. Back to Dan Skelton. So I mentioned Loda Sud, I've mentioned Fave War. The third horse that I think he was working on in the Betfair Hurdle was Knickerbocker Glory. And you'll notice the Knickerbocker Glory went forward. Nicky Henderson was actually convinced they went too hard. And if they did, Knickerbocker Glories ran a great race for 6th. Kind of suggesting that if he finished 6th when he went too hard, his new handicap mark of 135, he's dropped £2 from his 137, is still workable when he goes somewhere that he can actually run well. Where is that? I think it's obvious. Last year, he ran in the Imperial Cup, and he was second to the very impressive and progressive Isio that day. They beat Playful Saint, their other horse, Dan Skelton's other horse, in this race. And the reason I think Dan Skelton, as I said, finished 2nd and 3rd in this race, because he is a trainer that really likes to win the races that you can win and then go and win the Cheltenham and potentially win a bonus. He tried with Languedan. They won the Imperial Cup. He then finished 2nd to Galopin des Champs in the Martin Pipe. He tried it twice with Favois. It didn't work. He never got the Favois to win. But Favois did then go and win the County Hurdle subsequently. Kind of suggesting that he knew he had a horse that could win at Cheltenham. He just tried to get a horse that could win the bonus. Win a Morebattle and then be aimed at a bonus. Now, I think Knickerbocker Glory should definitely come back for this Imperial Cup. Yes, he would be off a £6 higher mark. You could put Heidi on, take 7 off. I thought she rode Favois really well. Or you could send Harry here, try and win this. You're not going to turn up to every race perfectly with this one and then Cheltenham in mind. But if you could win this, I would be disappointed if he didn't go very close, even off his £6 higher mark. Especially as I think he did run a really good race in the Betfair Hurdle, finishing 6th. A few more to go, and we've got another one over in Ireland, and that horse is Ascending, who's dropped £2 to 131. Now that's his Irish handicap mark, so we do have to be aware of that. That means I think he'll get probably around 135 in the UK. Now, last time out, he was disappointing. He did come on soft, heavy going. Maybe he doesn't want the heavy going. You can see that his previous runs had not been on that heavy. And, surely he's going to come back for the County Hurdle. And the reason for that, let's just see what price he is. Ascending. You can see that he's not a ridiculous price for the County Hurdle. He's not 50s or 100s. because there was some merit to his run last year at Cheltenham. He finished 5th in the Triumph Hurdle, behind Lossiemouth, Garlamarso, Zenta, Gust of Wind. Now, all of those were believed to be very good horses. Blood Destiny was back in 9th, has obviously done better over fences. And yeah, I just think that Ascending could have been aimed solely at Handicap. You can see that since that run at Cheltenham, he went to Punchestown in November, Leopardstown in December, and Navan in February. But interestingly, let's have a look at the type of races he ran in. Punchestown, it was a maiden hurdle, when he was actually beaten by It's For Me and Caldwell Potter. That's good form. He was then beaten by No Flies On Him, DB Cooper. He was back in 3rd in a maiden hurdle. That's actually quite good form. And then last time, okay, it was disappointing. He got beat by one of our other eye catchers who we were waiting for the handicaps in Helvic Dream. He was disappointing, finishing 5th, but it was in a maiden hurdle again. When are they going to let him take his chance in a handicap? He's got a handicap mark. If they're going to let him take his chance in a handicap, surely it's going to be the county hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival. So he's definitely one to be interested in, dropping £2 to 131 in Ireland. The next horse that dropped in Ireland is Ashdale Bob. He dropped £2 to 147. With Ascending and Ashdale Bob, if you watched my weekend review, you will have already seen these. But if you haven't, you won't know what I'm going to say here. So Ashdale Bob dropped £2 to 147. And that was off the back of a disappointing run over 2 mile 5. But I do think that's his trip. And I just think he's been beaten by better horses. You know, he's continually ran in graded races. Dropping back to handicaps. Go to the Coral Cup at the Cheltenham Festival. Why? Well, 2 years ago, he actually ran at the Cheltenham Festival in the Coral Cup. And he finished 3rd. Beaten by Fast or Slow and Commander of Fleet. Now, Commander of Fleet had previously finished 2nd, or had he won? He had finished 2nd at Cheltenham in the Albert Bartlett. And Fast or Slow has obviously gone on to win subsequent Grade 1s. And Cambrond came back the following year and ran another good race in the Coral Cup. It is a race that, you know, he probably ran a screamer to finish 3rd. He traded at 1.6, so nearly 1 to 2 in the run. I think that's 4 to 6 in the run. Traded quite short in the run, so clearly went close. That actually came off a mark of 152, a £5 higher mark. Now, I know the jockey, Jack Foley, took 3 off that day, so you could say he was running off an effective 149 mark. And in Ireland, he's got a mark of 147. But can the handicapper, the British handicapper, justify giving him anywhere near that mark? Can he justify giving him 152? Since finishing 3rd, or especially most recently, he's been beaten out of sight. Now, I know he's got a couple of 3rds here, but they were a long way behind horses that, you know, you would expect him to get a little bit closer to. If there's a potential to run anywhere and not get a higher Irish handicap mark, a higher British mark than his handicap mark in Ireland. I said that right that time. It's got to be Ashdale Bob in the Coral Cup. And if he did get 147, and maybe the trainer, Miss Jessica Harrington, managed to find a £3 claimer, could be very, very well handicapped with that Coral Cup in mind. And, you know, I know the likes of Langadan look well handicapped. Ashdale Bob would actually be well handicapped if he turns up there, if the handicapper is kind and goes, yeah, I agree with 147. Even if he goes 148, 149, you would still have to give him a chance. 149 and a £3 claimer, yeah, I'd still be very, very interested in Ashdale Bob. The final horse I want to talk about is Yorksea, who has dropped £4 to 119 after pretty much refusing to race at Newbury in the Betford Hurdle. And he does come with a health warning, this horse. You know, he's refused to race at Fontenoy, he refused to race at Kempton. He just about jumped off at Newbury and never really got involved. That was on heavy going. Maybe he doesn't like the heavy going. You can see that he'd previously run on good and good to soft at worst. 2 of his last 3 have been on heavy going. That means he has actually dropped to a ridiculous mark of 119. I mean, if we went back to probably the last run on decent going, over 2 mile that he actually jumped off at, Where was that? 2 mile at Kempton, which I think was... He didn't jump off. Heavy, soft. That was a flat race. Good. But over 2.5, 2.5, 2 mile. This was the last time he ran over 2 mile on good ground and jumped off. He finished 4th in the Betfair Hurdle off 126, a £7 higher mark. Okay, he's not going to win a Betfair Hurdle, and he didn't win the Betfair Hurdle. He's not going to win a county hurdle. He's probably not going to even get in the county hurdle. But, tell you what, I think he'd go very close in a Sussex Champion Hurdle. It's decent prize money for that type of race. Gary Moore won it last year with Teddy Blue, who had actually previously finished 3rd in the Betfair Hurdle. I mean, he didn't need to run them both that year, last year in Teddy Blue and Yorksea. I think he might run Yorksea this year in the Sussex Champion Hurdle, and if Yorksea jumps off and does get the better going like it was last year, it was good last year, I think Yorksea can certainly go well off that 119 mark. So just a quick recap. Nara, Don't Give Up for the Boodles Juvenile Hurdle. Fave White's surely going to be running in the Morebattle now. Ito Ditto, I'd love to see him aimed at the Silver Trophy, see where he goes in the meantime. Ikarak, I'd love to see him dropped back in trips slightly for the race at Kempton. Camsinas, definitely think the plan should be the Swinton with Camsinas. Knickerbocker Glory has to go back for the Imperial Cup off a £6 higher mark. I still think he would go very close. Clearly beaten by a good one. Ascending's likely to come back for the County Hurdle. Wouldn't be without a chance in the County. Ashdale Bob would be have a real chance in the Coral Cup if the handicapper is kind and leads him on 147 himself. And Yorksea, if he does turn up in that Sussex Champion Hurdle, you'll know early on. If he jumps off, I think he will go very close in that.